Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about a relatively new JavaScript feature called optional chaining. Let me take you through the problem it solves. What we have here is a user object with some data inside. And let's say now I wanted to just write an expression to extract the street. I would write user dot, because user is an object, and using a flying ship as a visual representation of an object. There's a captain on that ship, and that captain is able to find an address property inside. That address property finds an object. We now have another ship, and inside of that object, we can access .street. So this expression will result in the string primitive 38 maple muse. But now what if, for some reason, we were working with a user object that didn't have an address property? Maybe this is data that we've fetched from an API, and we can't be sure that every user will have an address. What will happen if I run this expression? Let's quickly find out. So as you can see, an error has been thrown. Cannot read properties of undefined. What's happened? We've accessed user, which is an object, and then we've tried to access address. Is there a property called address? No. So this expression here results in undefined. If it can't find that property, JavaScript returns undefined. But then we try and access street on address. But this is already undefined. It's a primitive value. I visualize primitives as islands. They're not ships. They don't store things. So trying to access .street is what throws the error here. Let me show you the common solution. Instead of assuming that address is in the user, we need to write a conditional. Let's say we're not even confident that user is defined. So if user and user.address, then let's console.log user.address.street. Great. So now my code won't break if address isn't inside user. But can we be sure that street is inside address? We better check in our conditional. So if user and user.address and user.address.street, then we can be confident that we have this value and we can do what we want with it inside of the conditional. But look how horrible this expression is. It's terribly verbose and hard to read. So what new versions of JavaScript give us is something called optional chaining operators. This is what it looks like. Let's write a new conditional and we'll start with user. If we're not confident that user is there, we're going to add a question mark. And now we can access .address. So if user is undefined, this expression is going to return undefined immediately. It's not going to try and access address if user isn't there. And we can do the same thing with street. So if we're not sure that address is there, we can go and add a question mark, .street, and complete the conditional. The reason why we don't need to add a question mark after street if we weren't sure that street is there is because by this point, if user.address is defined, if we have an object, then there's no problem with looking inside of that object for a property that might not be there. It will just return undefined. So no need for the question mark. And look at the difference between this expression and the use of the optional chaining operator, which is much cleaner and easier to read. It's also available in most modern browsers, and I recommend you giving it a try. Now you might be a little bit confused by the references to ships and islands and pointers. This is my visual representation of JavaScript fundamentals, and I actually have a free course on thegreatsync.com that introduces this and a lot of other fundamentals with objects specifically. It's available for free. Simply sign up and you can access. I hope you enjoyed this video.